fled. They've gone over in the Taliban and are now in hiding, and they are treating this as an insider attack. Fled. They've gone over in the Taliban and are now in hiding.
Was teaching me, have taught me about social media.
So this story is a fiction story, and the fiction is an adventure, so to speak, and it is intended for millennials mostly, who may have never had the opportunity to see some of the events that have occurred historically in our race, and they may have never had the opportunity to appreciate development of the Bible. It's not something you just carry around and thump on it and then knock on people's doors and try to convince them to believe a certain religion. That's the way that it's used, which is a shame, because it's a piece of literature that will enhance your life. It's a personal thing between you and the words that you read. It's got other people impose they just kind of dump on you. I know. I have 2 kids that are millennials, so I know their struggles, and I know your struggles, and that is the whole reason. That's the primary reason why I'm writing this book, is to convey a message without condemnation, and to convey a message without personal bias. Although, obviously I have a personal bias. I try the best I can to just present facts for facts and fiction for fiction and opinions for opinions. I also, another reason I wrote it is because I had a vision, and I don't know what else to call it. I mean, it was kind of like a picture on the wall, and I was just looking at the picture on the wall, but it was a motion picture. It wasn't still, and it was it looked like 5 aliens, really, from far away, and they were gathered. They were looking at these. They were men, but their posture was more like an ape. I mean, they were barbaric and primal, and it just it was an odd image to watch. And they selected one of those men and escorted him past me. They just kept walking, and they went behind me, but I knew what they were doing. I mean, I was watching it on the wall, but then they were behind me, and so I couldn't see them anymore. But what happened was Adam received the breath of life from our Creator. That's the way I interpret it. And that really shook me to the root of my faith, because I'd always believed that God breathed into him the breath of life, like he was laying on a table dead, or just created from dirt. Somehow God made him into a man on this table, and then he did mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and breathed into the breath of life. Fine. I mean, that's the way it's written in the Bible, and kind of like the way it's written in the Quran too. But what I saw was a living person already. He was already alive before he received that breath, and that's what really shook me. Really did. And the only conclusion I could come to is that he received the breath of life in a spiritual sense. He received the essence of man, not a beating heart. He already had a beating heart. In fact, he had a belly button already. But he received the essence of man, which gave him a connection to the spiritual realm, which is what you and I both have. We both have the essence of man through the mother of all living, who is Eve. So anyways, that was the inspiration for writing this, and your comments are welcome. On the YouTube video, there's a section which is a blog, and you can put your comments there. You have to be have a user ID in YouTube in order to do that. But if you log into YouTube and sign on and then look at this video, you'll see there's a section there where you can put in comments, and they're quite welcome, because the construction of this particular book is still underway, and now you know the motivation of why I'm writing it, so your comments are quite welcome. This is a sample reading of the Book of Enoch, a particular chapter. Not the Book of Enoch. A Book of Enoch. A book that is fiction, actually. The orb speaks. You cannot discuss with Adam, a fairy, an orb, a guide, a dragonfly. Why? Your history, your birthright, your time travel at night. I see a valley, an expanse from the hillside I crest. Green, all green. A meadow, patches of yellow wildflowers. They sway in a breeze that embraces my face. The aroma of the meadow, heavy. A group of hornets, like a ball of anger, is nearby. They threaten my feet, daring me to cross their underground nest. I avoid. He actually writes this as a memory, because his whole life is a memory from the modern era, from when he was before he was who he is. And you know, she says it's a fairy. I say it's a butterfly. This is the picture that I took. I took that picture. It came out like this. And this one, I'm not sure where it came from. All I can tell you for sure is that, to me, it doesn't really look like a butterfly. Well, it does. There's wings. There's two wings and maybe some antennas. But to me, it looks more like a fairy, because I can see the head, and I can see a leg right here, and another leg, and two arms. So regardless of where it came from, it's just a matter of interpretation of whether or not it's a butterfly or a fairy. To me, that's what was seen in that meadow, like hundreds of thousands of those over here. So, at any rate, this is page 2. The orb, the fairy, the guide of mine, glides silently down the hillside and into the valley on wings that flutter with lightning speed. I don't have a GPS. I don't have a map. I don't have a compass. I follow the orb. At the base of the hillside, the orb plunges beneath the ground, a mound, a little mound, a mound of fresh dirt, a rabbit hole, no, too small, an orb doorway, an entrance to the home of a fairy. Not one mound, hundreds of mounds, hundreds of orbs, a meadow of fairies. Standing on the slope of that rocky hillside, looking down into the green meadow, is stillness, except for his focus on all of these mounds everywhere, and crisscrossed with patches of yellow flowers and several trees way off in the distance. That's about it. And then you come to page 3. My guide does not return. This is the land of Elda. Silence, a wisp of wind, then silence once again. I check my waist. I have my hatchet. I still wear the armband where the medicine man wrapped my wound. I still have the knife. There is no path to follow in this meadow. Everything living here has wings or roots. There is no path, just a collage of colors. So I stand still and gaze across the flowing meadow. I have no direction to continue my walk. I have no inclination of which way to go. The land of Elda is a land spoken of in the pharisaical writings from 200 BC. They identify Elda as the land where the Garden of Eden was and where people traveled prior to the flood from time to time, although the population fled from Elda because there were a lot of violence and killing going on there from other tribes and clans that weren't part of the group that Enoch belonged to. So he fled, and what he's describing is a return trip to Elda from the land that he fled to. Enoch doesn't really just rush into the meadow for reasons of safety. He doesn't really know what's out there. He doesn't recognize anything, and he's been following this orb for like miles. And once he arrived in front of this big meadow, the orb disappeared and went down in one of those mounds where he's standing. So he just observes the patches of wildflowers. They are yellow. They move in the breeze. They move. They parade into a design on the floor of the meadow as large as a pond, a small lake of wildflowers. They form a massive butterfly shape on the ground. The flowers, they assemble, they do. I see it. I see the shape in the form of a collage of wildflowers on the ground ahead of me. So he can't see a path, or he doesn't really know what direction to follow since the orb is gone. As he's gazing out at the flowers, they actually move and create images. Then the flowers change shape again. I see the portrait of a dog, pointed ears, happy, smiling. The dog is tame. He pants with laughter. It is a mirage, a collage of wildflowers moving in unison to form that view, that mirage. The mirage transforms into a tree, full and robust. A collage of the wildflowers assimilates, consumes the dog, the tree with all of its leaves and fruit that dance in the meadow, and then a rabbit, a symbol, a man laughing, a black man wearing a colorful shirt. He laughs. He is a mirage on the floor of the meadow, thousands of yellow wildflowers, perfectly shaded and assembled to make the impression of a man. How could flowers move and make a collage? I mean, either Enoch is hallucinating or he's somebody else in a dream or in a vision, because those things just don't happen in real life like that. Well, ultimately, as the flowers keep moving and creating different images, he realizes that the flowers are actually being carried by these little orb fairies. That explains it. And again, the flowers dance. A lion. They form a lion. Majestic, bold, defined, dignified, beautiful, powerful. This lion is huge, a collage from the wildflower on the floor of the meadow. I look closely. A wildflower approaches me. This flower has a stem but no root. It glides through the air toward me. I watch. The flower is not alone. The flower is carried at the stem by the tiny hands of an orb with wings, a fairy. Thousands of fairies. They carry the flowers. They make the mirage. They create the collage using the flowers to paint an image in the meadow. It is the dance of the orb with the wildflower as a flag in the meadow that communicates with me, welcoming me to the land of Elda. Apparently it's the way that these fairies communicate with Enoch that he has arrived at his destination. The orb fairies return the flowers by the stems to the roots where they grow in the meadow. The orbs with wings, the fairies, they then all disappear down the entrances of the mounds of dirt made in the meadow, their home, their city in this field of flowers. The flowers once again idle, content. They sway once again in the light breeze of the morning, patches of yellow petals releasing a sweet aroma, content to sing their colors of glory. However, something has changed. There is a path. See, Adam is there in the land of Elda. And all of the clan, all of Adam's descendants left that land because of all the violence, but Adam remained there. And Enoch's goal in coming back to the land of Elda is to find Adam. As I progress carefully down the path, careful not to step on the flowers that grace the rim of the path, I hear the words whispered, "You cannot discuss with Adam," a fairy, an orb, a guide, a dragonfly. Why? Your history, your birthright, your time travel at night. I see him in the distance, sitting on a gentle slope of trimmed green grass, a slope facing a garden of flowers, many colors dancing. I see Adam, bronze, black, tan, powerful shoulders. Asian, no, Ethiopian. No, he is not definable. I trust. No, I suspect an illusion. He is an old man, like a monk with long hair. He has a beard, an Arab profile. He wears a cap. No, it's leather, dark leather. He has a scroll, like a scribe. He stands like a Greek god. He is much taller than me. The span of his shoulders dwarfs my own form. He is more than a man. He is Adam. He is. I fear to approach him. I am not worthy. I fear his voice. I fear his knowledge. I fear to be in his presence. My life will change forever if I approach. I cannot bear the fright. I cannot move, nor can I run. I am caught. He knows I am here. He is alone. Where is Eve, my first mother? No one ever told me where she has gone. If she is, where is Eve? All of my bold questions, I've collected so many valid questions over the years. Intelligent concerns and curiosity. Where are all of my questions? None of them seem worthy to ask. I'm not worthy to produce them, to inquire. The valley, the field, the meadow, it shrinks. I am drawn to Adam in the dissolving meadow. As water sucked down a drain, the field, it is consumed at the feet of Adam. I stand motionless, unable to run. I and the meadow beneath me are drawn to Adam, closer still. The valley is diminished to the green, gentle slope presented by Adam. I am standing beneath his shoulders and massive chest, paralyzed, unable to move or to speak. Out of turn I am, locked in the presence of Adam. His arms surround me. I receive a hug. a long-lasting hug of love. I can't imagine that scene. I can't imagine what it would feel like or look like to be standing in a three-dimensional physical meadow with flowers, and you see a man off in the distance, and you are like drawn to him as if you were going to be sucked down a drain at his feet. And then when you arrive there, everything stops and it's just you and him. Passion, caring. His hug is enormous, overwhelming. I feel acceptance, remorse, joy, and tears of repentance, a cry for forgiveness. Shame and laughter all in one sensation. Words can barely express the sensation of that hug from Adam, the first man. He answered all of my questions without speaking. I could sense the answers from his hug. His emotion was given to me all at once. The flurry of pain, not physical. He deeply loved Eve. He gave up his authority and position because he could not bear to be without her. His authority on this planet, his domain to rule. It meant nothing without Eve. For this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother to be with his wife. What's really strange is Enoch got into a situation where he was married to a woman named Edney. According to Midrashic literature, I think the Book of Jubilees mentions it also. And he traveled back to a land where he had been chased out of, where there was a lot of violent men, a whole tribe. And he went there to try and convince them to change, that they were being deceived into believing in all kinds of things, and they were inbred with it's a long story I can't get into, but he ran into another woman that appealed to him so much that he ended up having 2 wives. So he went back to Adam to inquire if he's permanently messed up, or actually whether or not Adam himself had a second wife. That was the reason why he traveled back there when he did. As far as the time travel is concerned, he was supposed to go there with his father for the birthright ceremony, so to speak, where Adam talks to the son about the birthright at a certain age, and that wasn't supposed to occur for, well, when the event occurred is when Adam died. So Enoch traveled back there on his own without his father to try to prevent that event from occurring, Adam dying. He figured if he went there by himself prematurely, he could ask these questions to Adam privately without his father knowing, first of all, and secondly, so that he wouldn't trigger that event of Adam dying, because you see, it wasn't really Enoch, it was a person from this generation on Earth where you and I reside right now. And he went back in time. Somehow he became Enoch in this conducted into time travel into the past. And so he did not want to trigger certain events. That's the background on all of that. So here, Adam talks to him. Adam spoke. He said, "There is a time when the Son of Man will come and say these words. all men cannot receive this same, save they to whom it is given. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Written so in your time as Matthew 19, verses 11 and 12. See, Adam already knew what Enoch's questions were before he even asked them, and that was one of them. And the answer that he gave, he quoted something that didn't exist yet. That was actually Jesus Christ answering a question about wives and whether or not you should have them and so forth. Enoch's thoughts, what does that mean? Adam replied, you have to realize Adam was pretty humble. He's not even responding to the fact that he can't bear the burden of being a eunuch. He's replying that he cannot bear the burden of leaving his wife, Eve. That's what he struggled with. Is he's speaking as if he couldn't bear the burden of being a eunuch and being without Eve, when in reality it was the other way around. He couldn't bear the burden of leaving her side because of what he was told, and he wanted to honor what his creator told him. Adam replied, I could not bear that burden. I gave up the domain of man, the reign of man, the mission of man, for the love of my wife, Eve. It is also written in your time, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh? Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. That is Matthew 19, verses 4 through 6, you see. That's what he was actually honoring. He was honoring the fact that he would leave his father and mother and remain with Eve, which really blows me away. I don't know who Adam's mother is. What I know who his father is, and he did not want to dishonor that statement, which is not only in Matthew, because Jesus Christ was actually quoting comments out of Genesis, the first several chapters where Adam was, where Moses wrote about Adam's creation. Adam went on to say, she was one with me because we were one when she was made. She was not made literally from one of my ribs. My ribs, I retain all of them. She was made from Selah. Yes, my side, the essence of me, the feminine essence of the chambers that I am. My hillside, the leaves of my soul, the walls of my limit, she extended. I do not know the wonders of creation. I only know that I loved her, and I could not bear any separation from her after that disobedience that ultimately cast us from Eden. That word right there is the Hebrew word for Selah, or made from the rib. It does mean rib, it does mean side, it does mean chambers, it does mean walls, and it does mean an extension. All of those words are meanings of this, and people that translated the Bible from Greek or Latin into English back in the 16th or 17th century decided to choose the word rib to say that Eve was made from his rib. Eve could have been made from the chambers that he is. It could have been made from the leaves of his soul, but they chose to use the word rib, and that's why we think that Eve was taken from his rib, and that's why this word is here in Hebrew with the footnote that explains from the Strong's Concordance what that word really means, rib. And see, the reason why I really focus on that one Hebrew word is because that is the essence of Adam, and the essence of Eve comes from that Hebrew word, rib. And to just write it off is kind of shallow, to just say that she came from his rib. We know that's not true. Anyone who thinks about how the first man could possibly have a clone, so to speak, which would have been Eve, that wasn't really the whole story. So Adam continued, I repeated the words of my Creator. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. This is written in Genesis 2, verse 23, of your generation. And so I honored my father and did not leave her alone. She may have left me, but I never left her. To the degree of disobedience, I kept my word and the words of my Father who made me. Well, I know you can't see all the letters. Just trust me, I'm reading them. And what of Lilith? That's a question from Enoch. And Adam's reply about Lilith. Lilith and I were never one. She rejected me. She rejected the commission. She remains immortal. She was the first mother of Nephilim. I do not know her. The consequences of her disobedience is not the same as my own. I don't know if you're aware of who Lilith is or was. Lilith is a lore, and Lilith is myth, and Lilith is written of briefly in the Bible. That word can be interpreted excuse me, several ways. One is night demon, but in myth and lore and midrashic literature, Lilith was a woman who was betrothed to be Adam's wife, and she rejected Adam. And I'm giving you my version. Because of that fact, Adam was the one who received the essence of man, and Eve was created as an alternate to Lilith and became Adam's wife. So he only had one wife. Lilith was never his wife. And Adam and Eve, because of the disobedience of Eve from being deceived by Satan, lost her immortality, as Adam honored his father's statement that the two will become one flesh, and that Adam would leave his father and mother to remain with Eve. Well, he knew that Eve had lost her immortality, and he did not want to leave her side. So his judgment call was to also disobey and because of that they were booted out, and both of them lost their immortality. But that doesn't explain what happened to Lilith. So if you want to know what happened to Lilith, you are going to have to find the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is not going to be on this video. The rest of the story, some of which isn't even written yet. Enoch's final thoughts before departing the presence of Adam. There was no need to ask Adam if Eve was his second wife. The answer is no. Yes, Lilith was his intended wife, perhaps, but that never happened. Well, if that never happened, where did she go? Lilith. And that is not the main thrust of the story, but it is part of it, because this book is a combination of lore and myth and midrashic literature. Midrashic literature is like alternate views of the scrolls that were used to create the Bible as we know it today, because back in the time of Enoch there was no Bible, but he did write a specific book, his story, up until he was 325 years old, and then he had lots of prophecies in it too. And then later, like many years later, Moses is the one who initiated the original scrolls that became the first several books of the Bible as we know it today. And there were dozens, 40-something authors, I think, who actually had written scrolls over a period of 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years. And all these different scrolls, when you assembled them, they eventually became the Old Testament. And then once Jesus Christ was on the earth, new scribes were writing about his events, and they became the 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then you had disciples and apostles who went through a reformation of Christianity, so to speak, or the formation of it, and those were more authors, and all of those scrolls became the New Testament. So that's how the Bible came about. It's not just one guy writing it, it's many authors. And the Bible itself has history of its own, which people deliberate forever. We're never going to agree on what the Bible means, because there's so many pieces to it that people are convicted of, and other pieces they're not convicted of because of their thought processes and the events in their own life and the type of life they live and the type of ways they think. And so the first part of the New Testament, the very first words, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, yada yada yada. But stop and think, in the beginning was the Word, and the Bible is a whole bunch of words. And when we read them, it's just a story. It's just a two-dimensional story, which could be a riddle or a rhyme, or written as a fairy tale. But they're words. And when you read those words and put them together, you become connected to a realm which is outside of the physical realm where we live. That's why we have scientists. They look at the physical realm and they do tests and comparisons, and they do these different things to to validate a fact. And once it's a fact, it can be held on to. And that's where atheists live. They live in the realm of physical facts, and they don't believe in God because you can't see him. But see, he's not from he's not from our realm. He is in a spiritual realm, and you can't test that with a scientist can't test, but you can read the words, and you telepathically will receive that. There's a word called myopia. I'm pulling it up. I want you to see it. Myopia. Also known as nearsightedness and short-sightedness. It's not really just that. It's a condition of the eye where the light that comes in does not directly focus on the retina. Well, that's pretty good, actually. Most common refractive error of the eyes can also be a result of cornea, myopia. Myopia is also the inability to see the spiritual realm. Go figure. So I guess the end result of it all, what I'm trying to accomplish here is to ask you some questions about this chapter that I just read, because I put so much narrative into it, and the chapter doesn't really have all that, and I don't know how to convey that without the narrative. So my question to you is, do you think that this should be edited with the narrative embedded in between those pages for an explanation, or not? The one disadvantage that you have is you didn't have the opportunity to see the first 10 or 15 chapters. Just kind of jumped right in the middle of it. So I kind of was giving you some background that comes from previous chapters, and then also a little bit of philosophy in between, our background. So, you know, give me your comments on it since it's still in development.
Be the night demon. No one ever tries to look in your eyes, but I'm like a flashlight, and so I pretend I'm alive. But demons get tired and almost away from the dust. It's only that wants to be riding on your dreams in the dark. All the dreams are deeper and deeper. One nail can make zookeepers, so it's wonder. Hey, deliver, be the night demon, be the night demon, be the night demon, be the night. so it's wonder how to live day and night, demon, day and night, demon, day and night, demon, day and night, demon.
In principle, it's not ridiculous that that UFOs could be associated with extraterrestrial life and extraterrestrial spaceships. In principle.
Then when we got back to Roswell, that's when they told us to keep our mouth shut.
It's people like the skeptics that encourage me, because they're doing the bidding of the puppeteers, the puppet masters, the people who are pulling the strings.
Hillary Clinton, we know, met with Lawrence Rockefeller multiple times, and we've got a proven paper trail linking her as one of the point people on the UFO matter with Lawrence Rockefeller during the Clinton White House years. Now that's a very interesting thing, and one could ask, where was the media in these last 20 years?
John Podesta your message at the tone.
You know, if you're Hillary Clinton about to run a presidential campaign, it seems to me this is an issue that you want to deal with.
Thanks for clicking on Zeitgeist. I'm Willie Geist. The question of whether or not extraterrestrials have visited our planet has now risen all the way to the White House. Seriously, President Obama is officially and now on the record in denial about UFOs and their alien pilots. As anyone with a copy of the internet can tell you, there have been any number of UFO sightings in this country over the years, and some notable crashes inside our borders, most famously in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. So the White House on its website has a section called We the People, where citizens can petition the administration online and get a response if they pull together enough signatures. One recent petition at whitehouse.gov read, "Immediately disclose the government's knowledge of and communications with extraterrestrial beings." That one had more than 5,000 signatures. Another petition, this one with 12,000 signatories, reads, "Formally acknowledge an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race." The White House responded. Phil Larson, with the Office of Science and Technology Policy, wrote in part, "Thank you for signing the petition asking the Obama administration to acknowledge an extraterrestrial presence here on Earth. The U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. In addition, there's no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public eye. However, that doesn't mean the subject of life outside our planet is not being discussed or explored." Larson lays out some of the groups studying life off Earth, pointing out that many scientists believe there is life on some faraway planet, but that we humans are unlikely ever to make contact because of the, quote, distance involved. So, the Paradigm Research Group, which sponsored the petitions, unmoved by that, putting out a statement, read perhaps only by me, that read, "As expected, it was written by a low-level staffer. The response was unacceptable. Particularly unacceptable when you consider the evidence is right under the nose of the White House. Or should I say, right over the head of the White House." It was the summer of 1952 when a swarm of UFOs famously swooped in over Washington. And it was probably sometime in the summer of 2007 when this video was doctored up on some dude's MacBook and posted on YouTube. But don't take my word for it on the 1952 incident over D.C. Listen to this guy with an authoritative voice in a clip we found somewhere in the depths of the World Wide Web. It's got black and white video and everything.
At 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, July 19, 1952, an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport spotted 7 blips in a corner of the radar scope. They were moving at 100 miles per hour and were heading for the Capitol. No aircraft were known to be in the area. Jet interceptors were scrambled to investigate the UFOs, but within moments, the radar blips had disappeared. When the jets landed, the UFOs returned.
Well, 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 Phil Larson of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Facts and evidence can be an inconvenient thing, can't they? You say you have no credible evidence of extraterrestrial life on Earth. I say you don't have YouTube and a guy with a soothing, deep voice. Expect a new petition on your desk by day's end. That's Zeitgeist for today. I'll be back here soon with much more of the news you cannot hear.